Have you watched Marvel's Daredevil on Netflix, seen one of the corridor fight scenes and thought to yourself, damn son, that is awesome? I'll leave a link in the description below. Well, Sifu is that fight scene, but for an entire game. My name is Joe, here are my top 10 tips for new Sifu players. If you like the content, consider subscribing, I would really appreciate it. Number 1, don't rely on parrying, use the avoiding. The intro looks amazing and is very cool. The tutorial section shows you some of the mechanics which you try once and then it moves on. This doesn't really let you understand the importance of certain things as you're playing. So for the first few hours of the game, you'll probably rely on parrying every enemy, which will be fine and get you far enough through the first level and the first boss. But in the second level, you're going to start struggling, which is why you need to use avoiding more than parrying. It is significantly easier to dodge punches and avoid enemy attacks, as the window for an avoid is significantly larger than the parry. Although at first the inputs can feel a little awkward to use, as you need to hold block and tilt the analog backward. Number 2, skills and how they actually work. In my first couple hours of playing, I would spend the experience points I earned on as many different skills as I could to try and give me as much short-term power as possible, to see how far I could get. This is not a good strategy, because you'll be repeating the same levels over and over again to try and beat each level with as few deaths as possible. So what you need to do is permanently unlock the skills, which means you first need to unlock the skill you want, then invest another 4 times the amount of experience for the cost of the skill. For example, the best skill in my opinion is Environmental Mastery, which costs 1,000 points to use until you die. But in order to keep using it every time you reset, you need to invest another 4,000 points, which is 5,000 points in total. I had only realized this after 7 hours of playing, so when I went back to the first level, and instead of using the shortcuts I'd unlocked, I went hunting every single enemy to get as many experience points as possible. Number 3, the age thing. Your character starts the game at 20 years old. In Sifu, when you die, you have the option to give up or stand back up. Every time you stand up, your character ages 1 year, up to 70 years old. When it's game over, each time you die, the death counter goes up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. So when you start at 20 years old, then 21, then 23, then 26, then 30, it ramps up quite quickly. The first level, without any modifiers, you'll have about 10 or 11 lives before it's game over, and you must restart, losing all non-permanent skills and any shrine bonuses. When you first start a level, having the ability to die a lot and still be able to explore is very handy, letting you learn where all the enemies are and get to experience the whole level, letting you unlock some shortcuts along the way to make getting to the boss a bit easier and less risky. Once you have beaten a level, you'll then start the next level at the youngest age and death counter you reached it at. So if you beat level 1 and died a bunch, so you are then 45 years old, you will then start level 2 at 45 years old, giving you only 6 or 7 lives to work with. So what you need to do now is master level 1, so you can do it with as little deaths as possible, either 0, 1, or 2, so that you have more lives when attempting the next one. Number 4, elites. Elite enemies have this glow around them and are a lot tougher than normal enemies. They do more damage and have more health. A bunch of them are scattered throughout the levels. Some of them only spawn when you try to execute them. Instead of being executed, they will counter it and heal to full. From my experience, the elites will always spawn in the same spot as one of 2 enemies. So if you can memorize where they are and either save them for last in the pack of enemies or just not execute them and beat them to death, then you can avoid having to really deal with them entirely. When killing an elite, it will reduce the death counter by 1. So this will give you more lives, letting you die more in a level. Number 5. Enemies take a ton of damage falling downstairs or small drops, and so do you. This is a tough game with some very tough enemies. You are always at a disadvantage when fighting, so you will need to find a way to even the playing field. Make use of your environment. When an enemy is pushed into a wall, they take extra damage and are stunned, letting you extend your combo. When tripped down some stairs, they take significantly more damage, and when pushed off a ledge or balcony, this can often kill them in one hit. Number 6. Memorize the weapon locations. Knowing where weapons are can drastically change the difficulty of an encounter. Weapons do much more damage than your fists, so you'll want to have a weapon on you at all times if possible. So, on your first runs of a level, when you're exploring, try and make a note of where weapons are, and then strategize the best way to use them. For example, here I take a brick from the previous room, to then throw it at the enemy, stunning them, then picking up the weapon on the floor, sprinting to them, and doing a sweep attack to make them lose their weapon, making the encounter significantly easier. Number 7. Throw all the weapons. If you are holding a weapon and you see an enemy coming at you, also holding a weapon, don't worry about throwing your weapon, just yeet the thing, because when you take the enemy down, you can pick up their weapon. In some of the later levels, almost every single enemy will have a weapon, so there'll be lots of weapons on the ground a lot of the time. So after using a weapon for a little bit, just yeet the thing. If you are not throwing weapons, you are not using them properly. Number 8. Sweep attack makes enemies drop their weapons. There are multiple ways to do a sweep attack, from combos, single attacks, and skills. Performing them on enemies holding weapons makes them drop them, giving you some ammunition to start yeeting the things. Disarming your opponents and using their weapons against them is the best way to survive. Number 9. Environmental interactions. Having this skill unlocked lets you interact with the environment by pressing R1 to yeet something at an enemy, which can be anything lying on the ground, like chairs. What it also does is let you instantly throw discarded weapons at a target, like with bottles for example. You don't need to press circle to first pick it up, then R1 to throw it. You can be standing next to a bunch of them and just mash R1 to repeatedly throw everything around you. Because you listened to me earlier and you unlocked environmental interactions, I get to show you this room normally versus with the environmental interactions. These two clips are 3 hours apart, and what a difference it makes. Number 10! Don't try to speedrun every single fight. Knowing when to be defensive and when to be aggressive is important. You don't want to be trying to go as fast as possible from the get-go. Take your time, enjoy it. The scenery is gorgeous and the levels are wonderfully crafted. This game is difficult and it can be frustrating. Take a break and come back to it later. And lastly, have fun! This has been Joe. Leave a like and subscribe.